StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one daily master class that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today I'm going to give you a tutorial. This is going to be a survivor's guide. This is a social justice survivor's guide. All right, for any of you who is not woke, of any race, black people, white people, Asian people, Latin, whatever, wherever you're from, doesn't matter. If you are a non-woke individual, but at the same time you are not racist, and at the same time you are not afraid of the mob, but you're kind of leery of the mob. You're leery of the social justice mob, and you're just trying to figure out how can you defend yourself, even though you do not agree with them. And you don't want to, you don't want to go along with what they're doing, but you're not quite sure what you can say or how you can engage with these individuals. And they are so bombastic with their points and with their ideas. How can you deal with these individuals? I'm going to help you out here today. So first of all, I'll tell you that way back in episode number 1632, I listed the best things that a white American or white person, period, from anywhere, can do, or person who, a fair-skinned individual, let's just say that. Because when I say white person, usually I'm referring to a person from America. So if you look the same as a white American, but you're from somewhere like Europe, or you're Latin, or you're Australian, I'm talking about you too. All right, so fair-skinned individuals is a better way I could have put that to be more accurate, but white people will make more sense. But anyway, that was in 1632. Best things white people can do to promote social justice, if you really want to promote social justice, and in a way that I mean real social justice, not the social justice movement. But anyway, before I go any further, let me tell you that I have a text line that I want you to engage me with. My number is 305. I want you to engage me at. My number is 305-384-6894. Tell me the best insight you get from today's masterclass, or the worst thing that I said here today that makes no sense whatsoever and I should be in jail for even saying it. Or if you just have a question or follow-up information, supplemental information for anything that you hear today, my number is 305-384-6894. The number is down below in the show notes as well. So send me a text, and yes, that is me. I will be responding. And you can also text the number 3, just the number 3, to that same number, 305-384-6894, and I will reply with a link for you to go claim your free copy of my new book, The Third Day, The Decision That Separates the Pros from the Amateurs. So everything I'm going to share here today, who I had in mind. I had a target audience in mind when I made this particular masterclass. This is not really for black people. This is not really for Latins or people from outside the USA. This is really for non-woke white Americans who are not racist. You know that you're not racist. And at the same time, you're not afraid, again, of the mob, but you're leery of this woke mob that is coming for everybody right now. Eventually, they're going to come for everybody, no matter what color you are, and people from other places. But really, this is based on what I've seen in the United States of America. So if you're from outside of America, I didn't make this with you in mind, but you can absolutely use it. So you're not racist, but you, at the same time, you do not subscribe to anti-racism. And I hope that you do not subscribe to anti-racism, because I address anti-racism in a 4-part series, episodes number 17, 88, 89, 90, and 91. Again, 17, 88, 89, 90, and 91. Those are linked down below in the show notes as well. So if you have any questions about anti-racism, first of all, listen to those 4 episodes, and I think I'll probably answer them all. So you, the person I'm talking to, my target audience for today's tutorial, you do not have a problem with the existence of black folks, yet at the same time, you don't feel the need to condemn yourself and your own whiteness and your inherent wrongness, and I'm being tongue-in-cheek with these things, for being born with fair skin. You would like to be in this conversation because you do have some things to say, and I know you have some things to say because I hear from some of these individuals who tell me that they see, talking to someone like myself, when they hear how I feel on these things, they feel like they can share certain things and share that they feel like they can't really say anything in certain rooms because you're going to be shouted down, you're going to be vilified, you're going to be attacked, just not because of your points, not even because of your opinions, but because of the color of your skin and having those opinions. Because I have these opinions. I don't really get vilified and attacked. I think one reason is people know I can defend myself. And another reason is because I'm black. All right, so I can kind of get away with saying these things, and people at worst will just not say anything. They'll just act like they didn't hear it. But if a white person was to say the same things that I'm saying, the world would be at your throat right now, and you might need personal security to take a walk to the pizza shop. But anyway, but on top of that, you know that if you do get in that conversation, again, you'd be shouted down, vilified, canceled, otherwise ostracized for having the gall to be a white person and challenging woke talking points. I mean, there are even white people who will attack you for your woke talking points, and they're white. Y'all supposed to be on the same team, I thought. But anyway, I understand this. I see it. It's going on every day. It's happening right now. While we're talking, somebody's doing it right now. I have heard from many of you, again, you see talking to someone like me as maybe a safe space for you because you see that I'm not onto the woke shit, and at the same time I'm open to an intelligent conversation no matter who it's coming from and no matter who the topic of the conversation may be. And today I'm going to help you out again with this is a survival guide for any of you who is not woke, but you're also white and you're also not anti-racist. You're just trying to find your place in this world right now. Let me help you out. Point number one, topic once again, a social justice survival guide for non-woke, non-scared, not anti-racist white people. Number one, this is something clear off top, because there are people, black people and white people, ironically, who will say when they hear what I'm going to talk about here today, they may already be saying it and didn't even listen to the whole thing. They're saying, Dre, you're defending these white people. All right, you're defending white people. You're black. You're supposed to be, on the black side. You're defending these white people. You're defending white people who might be racist. You're giving these white people an open lane and a safe space to be racist. Why are you doing that, Dre? And here's what's funny. I'll tell you a quick little funny anecdote. I had somebody say this to me. I had a black man say this to me. He knows who he is. He may be listening right now, and I know some people who are listening right now know who this gentleman is because they might have been there when he said it. I had a black man say this to me get this, check this out. This guy's married to a white woman, and he told me, Dre, you're out here defending these white people. This man really said this out of his mouth. Now, I believe that this gentleman, to the benefit of the doubt, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, that I believe this gentleman was under the influence of alcohol at the moment that he said this, but later on he claimed that he was not, but I believe that he was. So anyway, that's just a funny little LOL for everyone, that this guy who's married to a white woman says, Dre, you out here defending these white people. Like he doesn't know any of them. But anyway, this isn't about defending white people. It's about defending intelligence. And I've told you how I feel about wokeness back in episode number 1595. I shared with you a response that I gave to a woke messenger who sent me a direct message about something that I said. I told you in episode 1819 why I personally am not woke, and I already told you about the anti-racism episode series that I did. This is about defending intelligence. Intelligence can come from anywhere. I don't care what color you are, what age you are, what sex you are, what gender you identify with. If you have something intelligent to share, then I'm interested in it. I respect intelligence from all sources. And no matter who it benefits, and no matter who it needs to condemn or criticize. And I will point out ridiculousness no matter who is doing it. If it's a black person, if it's a white person, if it's a gender neutral individual, it does not matter. Intelligence and ridiculousness don't have a race. All right, they do not have a personal preference. They are impartial. They just are what they are. So if you are incapable of doing that, anyone who's listening to me right now, then the person with the problem is not me. The person with the problem is you. But if you keep listening, I'll help you out with your problems as well. Let's move on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is a social justice survival guide for non-scared, non-woke, non-anti-racist white people. Number 2, first thing you must do, those people that I just described, you must arm yourself with factual information. Factual information, meaning empirical data. And let me tell you why you're going to arm yourself with empirical data. Because you're not going to do what your first instinct might be to do with this data. You are not going to use this data to combat woke people. You're not going to use this data to go argue with the BLM supporters. You're not going to go use this data to go beat people upside the head with it. No, don't do that. You're going to use this data. You're going to arm yourself with this data, and you're going to use this as it's kind of like a boxer or a fighter. Use it as a counterpunch. You're not going to go walk up and start punching people with your data. What you're going to do is hold it back. It's kind of like a boxer is holding back that right hand or that left hand, depending on if they're orthodox or southpaw, and you just use it as a counterpunch. So when someone comes at you, you already got your factual data ready to punch back. Okay? So you're going to be a classic counterpuncher with this information. And you're going to utilize this factual data that you have not to attack people with it, but to ask questions with it. You're going to use your questions as your defense mechanism. The best offense is good defense. When a black person's in the room, especially a militant BLM woke black person, and they start talking about how racism is holding them back or holding their people back or has held their people back, and this doesn't have to be a black person. Actually, a lot of white people are picking up on this as well. So a black or white person or any person, doesn't matter what color they are, so they start talking this shit, all right? All you're going to do, or they start talking about who's being held back, how police are killing whoever every day. The last thing you want to do, let me tell you what you don't want to do, okay? I want to make sure that you don't make the mistake first, then I'm going to tell you how to do it right. Let me tell you what not to do. Do not go rhetoric for rhetoric or emotion for emotion with these individuals. You don't want to do that. I'm going to tell you why you don't want to do that, because that's their game. All right, you don't want to play their game. If you're playing Shaquille O'Neal one-on-one in basketball, you don't want to make the game about backing the other guy down and making layups and dunks, because that's his game, and he'll probably beat you at that game. He's probably just better at it than you are. What you want to do is bring him into territory that he's not comfortable with. And even if you don't know what that is, you know where he is comfortable, so you want to keep him out of that space. You want to do the exact opposite of what he's comfortable doing. So do not go rhetoric for rhetoric or emotion for emotion or blame for blame with these individuals, because they're better at that game. It's just like they say, when you wrestle in the mud with a pig, you both get dirty and the pig likes it. Okay, this is a losing strategy. Plus, at the same time, you're white, remember? So you're not allowed to speak on these topics anyway. LOL. So seriously, what you need to do is present your facts in a form of asking a question. You can present a fact and follow it up immediately with a question, or you can present your fact as a question. But you ask questions about the facts that you share and see what response you get. That's what you need to do. So arming yourself with these facts. Now you might be wondering, okay, Dre, I get it, but where do I actually get these facts? Where do I get this factual information that I'm going to arm myself with and use as my defense? I'm gonna give you two authors specifically, two specific people, because there are a lot of sources out there, and there may be many more. And if any of you know of some that I didn't mention here today, I'm only gonna mention two people. So if there are others that you've been listening to or know of, I may know of them, but I just didn't reference them here today. But I want you to text me and tell me about them, and I'll see if it's someone I've heard of. Have I heard them speak? Have I read anything they've written? Maybe you'll put me on to somebody new. But these two individuals, one of them goes by the name of Thomas Sowell, Sowell. Now, Thomas Sowell is like 90 years old. He's a black man. Both these guys are black men. Thomas Sowell is an economist by trade. That's where he initially came up. And he's been writing about social justice things, race things, economic things. He's been writing about these things for decades, literally decades. As I told you, he's 90 years old. He's been writing about this stuff for a very long time. He's written probably 100 books, who knows, several books on several different topics. I have mentioned Thomas Sowell and spoke about him at length on this show in the past. So I would suggest go look up Thomas Sowell. And the other guy you're going to look up, his name is Jason L. Riley. Now, Jason is more contemporary. He's more active right now. He's the younger guy. He's probably 30, 40 years old. And while Riley is younger and more active today doing interviews and things like that, you'll find him on podcasts and on YouTube actively with new stuff where he's being interviewed by whoever and doing his own stuff. Thomas Sowell has more books and more videos overall on YouTube because he's been around for such a long time. So you can find Thomas Sowell media appearances. He's not a YouTuber. Thomas Sowell's not on YouTube talking to a camera by himself. Every time you see Thomas Sowell on camera, he's talking to someone else. It just happened to get filmed and recorded and posted to YouTube. But you'll see appearances that Thomas Sowell did 40 years ago at some school where he was talking, or he was on some panel or doing a debate and speaking. But Thomas Sowell is, this guy's just a wizard with the things that he talks about when it comes to stating actual facts. I'm talking about empirical data, looking at actual facts on these subjects, because again, the last thing you want to do when you get into any kind of back and forth with one of these woke people is go emotion for emotion, because you will not win. They've been doing it their entire lives. They're too good at it. You're not going to win. And if you really have strong points, you don't want to make it about emotion anyway. You want to keep it based on the facts. And if you keep things based on the facts and the other person's getting emotional, then they look like the idiot, which they should, but you have to play this the right way to make them look like the idiots that they actually are, if that person is indeed an idiot. There are some smart people who are woke as well, but they don't have information to back up their wokeness, and most of them are going to scurry away when they see that you have actual facts. So I told you, Thomas Sowell and Jason L. Riley, these are the two authors I'm going to tell you to focus on, because they have basically their entire bodies of work are extensively about these things. Now, I'll tell you some specific books. Jason L. Riley actually just wrote a book about Thomas Sowell. It's called Maverick. You can read that. I haven't even read that book yet. I'm not even sure it came out yet. I think it is out, but I haven't read it yet. But that book is really just talking about Thomas Sowell's journey and his background. But the books that each of these guys have written that are specifically going to arm you with a good amount of facts. From Thomas Sowell, there's a book called Black Rednecks and White Liberals. Thomas Sowell has several books on economics. I don't even remember the titles of all of these books, but he has a whole lot of them. So go look them up. Read these books. You might even be able to download these somewhere or something like that. Jason L. Riley's book, the one that I got introduced to Jason through, was a book called Stop Helping Us. These may be the only two books he's written. The one about Thomas Sowell and the one called Stop Helping Us. Those may be his only two books, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has others. Those are the two that I know about. These are the two that I suggest that you go read. Go find them on YouTube. They are both on YouTube. Find their videos, watch their videos. The videos are completely free. Jason L. Riley does a lot of interviews, so you can go find his interviews on people's podcasts and things like that. Consume all you can get your hands on from both of these individuals. Why? Because they both will arm you with factual information. And again, I'm going to emphasize this, cannot emphasize it enough. Do not engage in social justice debate without facts. As a white person living in America, it is not worth it because you already know what's going to happen. And you already know. That's why you haven't been saying anything up to now. This is the game that you got to play. If you're going to get in this game, I'm telling you how to do it. This is the way to do it. Have the facts. Use your facts as questions, not as a baton to go attack, but use it as a defensive shield. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is a social justice survival guide for non-racist, non-scared, non-woke, non-anti-racist white individuals. Number 3, I want you to remember something. You are not in the business of changing minds. Yes, you heard me correctly. I told you about this in episode number 1669. That is the exact title. You are not in the business of changing minds. What do I mean by this? People who are into the wokeness, people who have bought into the BLM storyline, hook, line, and sinker, people who are going to argue with you or want to argue with anyone, or are they just looking for a white person to condemn about their whiteness and about the black plight, black person or white person who will do this. Listen, they have already bought into the concept of victimhood, and victimhood sells for a very important reason. I already told you why victimhood sells. That was in episode number 1613. I told you why it sells. Victimhood sells because it draws attention, and people like having attention. It draws sympathy. When people are sympathetic towards you, they give you things without you having to earn it. Who doesn't want to sign up for that? Victimhood requires at least people who have agreed to your victimhood, it requires some form of reparation. People owe you something. All right, you are a victim of this, so we have to give you this. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to work for it. You don't even have to be worth it. We have to give it to you because of these bad things that have been done to you. These are all things that come with being a victim, and this is the reason why victimhood sells. This is why people who have decided that they are victims do not want to be convinced, nor will you succeed at convincing them that they are not victims. So you do not want to jump into any of these conversations with these social justice people who are bought into this, people who are bought into the religion of it, these woke folks, and try to tell them that they're not victims. All right, they don't want to hear it. Again, why would anybody not sign up for this job, this role that gets these perks and bonuses that they don't even have to work for? Being a victim is becoming a power position. I have a masterclass coming on that very subject very soon. People do not want to abandon the power that comes with being a victim. And many of them, and one of the reasons why is because many of them would not acquire power in any other way. There are very few people who would buy into being a victim and take the power that comes with that, while at the same time, if you remove their victimhood, they could actually create their own personal power. Very few individuals who can live on both ends of that spectrum. So the people who are living on one end would never live on the other end, and vice versa. So do not argue with people who see themselves that way. When a black person sees himself as a victim and they say, well, the reason why black people, or I personally, am not doing what I could be doing, or this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, and they start listing out all the reasons. The cops are doing this, the government's doing this, the system's doing this. Here's an example, here's an example, here's an example, slavery, this. When they start doing that, don't try to change their mind. You're not in the business of changing minds, and if you try, you will fail anyway. You'll go out of business. Your only goal is to provide that person with some questions that are based on the facts that you are armed with, and let them take that information home with them. Offer to ask questions that you're going to share. All you're going to do is be the vessel between them and the factual information that you are armed with. So your job is to get the information from the sources that I just gave to you. Get the information. When somebody starts with that woke shit, then you throw the facts at them in the form of questions and let them take it home with them. All right, they're not going to change their mind on the spot, by the way. All right, this is a 90 to 180 day sales cycle at minimum. Point number 4. Today's topic, once again, is a social justice survival guide for non-woke, non-racist, non-anti-racist, and non-scared white people. Number 4, I'll give you some example questions because you're like, all right, Dre, I get it. I'm going to read these books, but can you give me some examples of how I would talk to these people when they come with their woke shit? I'll give you a few. All right, here's one. When someone starts telling you that racism is at its all-time high right now, racism is as bad as it's ever been for black people in America right now. And there are people saying this all over social media. I see this all the time. All right, when someone says that, here's what you say. You say if racism is getting worse, then if you really believe, let me say it in a way that I don't want it to sound combative. All right, if you believe that racism is getting worse, Mr. BLM, why is the poverty rate and the rate of single-parent households in America right now higher than it was during Jim Crow, which was before the Civil Rights Movement? I mean, black people didn't even have civil rights back then, but the poverty rate and the single-parent rate is higher now than it was then. Surely, blacks have made some progress since then, right? And then don't say anything. Let them answer the question. They won't really be able to answer the question, and many of them won't even know that fact that you just threw at them. That's really what's going to happen. You're hitting them in the head with a fact that they didn't even know existed, that flies in the face of whatever they may be claiming, and they're going to need to figure out a way to recover. Now, again, don't be combative about it, because that gives them an out clause to just be combative back, and then they can ignore the actual topic. They can move the goalpost on you to make it about you versus them, when it's not about that. It's about facts versus facts. And since they don't have any facts, you're going to win. Let me give you another example question. Ask them, hey, Mr. Woke school teacher, why is the NAACP, the NAACP, which stands for those of you who don't know, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, why is this organization against charter schools when the majority of failing black students are coming from public schools? Now, I'm out of the question. Let me just give you a side note on that. For those of you who don't know, any of you who knows the education world, you may know a little bit about this, that charter schools they number much less than public schools, but charter schools are schools that are created by a charter. And a charter is basically, to really simplify the conversation, charter is basically a contract or permission that an organizer, could be you or I, is given in order to run a school. And the thing about charter schools that make them different from public schools is there's one specific distinction, is that if a charter school is underperforming based on certain criteria, a charter school is given criteria, all right, you need to hit these numbers, your school needs to perform at this level, and if it doesn't, here's the thing, if a charter school underperforms, then it has its charter, i.e. its permission to be operating, it is removed. In other words, charter schools are a performance-based business. If you do not perform, you can no longer have your school. Public schools don't have this permission mechanism in place. In other words, if a public school underperforms, nothing happens. The school just keeps running and it just can continue to underperform. That is not to say that every public school underperforms, but it is to say that when a public school does underperform, there is no mechanism in place to hold it accountable. There is no accountability for the public school system. Therefore, no accountability for the teachers who work in the public school system. And this is why teachers who work in the public school system, who are part of a teachers union, they oppose charter schools because charter schools would directly compete with public schools. And if enough charter schools existed and the numbers can be shown how charter schools perform versus public schools, the students that is, it would probably be clear. And Thomas Sowell has asserted this. Read that he wrote a book called Charter Schools and Their Enemies. There's another title for Thomas Sowell. He has declared this, that when charter schools are compared to public schools and you factor and you control for certain data, like which types of students, which neighborhoods, etc., charter schools have far outperformed public schools. And this is why teachers unions are against charter schools, because the teachers who work at charter schools are not part of a teachers union. And the reason that the union is against them is because of that. Now, if charter schools allow their teachers to become part of the union as well, then teachers unions would be happy with charter schools rather, and they would allow them. But right now they're fighting against them. Now, what does the NAACP have to do with it? I mean, is it their organization? It's called the Advancement of Colored People. So why would they be against charter schools? They're against charter schools because the teachers union is a very powerful organization that lobbies, i.e. pays money to organizations such as the NAACP. And they have paid the NAACP to be against charter schools. So the NAACP has come out. This association that is for the advancement of colored people, allegedly, in other words, another form of BLM, they have come out against charter schools, even though charter schools have accountability for their performance and public schools do not. Just based on that simple distinction between the two, what school would you rather send your child to? A school that is held accountable for its performance or a school that's not? And this is all factual information you all can look up, ladies and gentlemen. If I got anything wrong, I know there's some teachers who listen to this. I know there are many parents who listen to this. If I got anything wrong, you text me and you let me know. You challenge me on my points, and I'll correct myself on the same platform that I'm putting the information out on. My number is 305-384-6894. This is happening right now in our schools. And I know people who work in teachers unions. Actually, I know a lot of people who work in teachers unions. I don't really talk to a lot of them about this, and a lot of them don't have my makeup for these kind of conversations, but they know what's going on. So this is the question again. The factual question is, why is the NAACP against charter schools when a majority of the failing black students, when students fail in school, they end up in college and they realize that they weren't getting the right education in school. Most of them are coming out of public schools. So why can't we have some more charter schools? Why is the government going against charter schools? Why is even Democratic governments going against charter schools? They're going against things called school choice. You don't know what school choice is exactly as it sounds. It's a parent being given the choice of what school they want to send their kid to. Right now, we have basically the neighborhood school system. Whatever neighborhood you're in, that's the school you go to. How many of you parents right now, you live in a certain area? I mean, you work where you work, but you chose the area that you lived in based on the school system. All right, I want to live in this area because this area has better schools. One of my friends who I saw when I was in Philadelphia, she has kids, young kids who are in elementary or middle school. And I said, why'd you move to this neighborhood? I went and saw her in the neighborhood that she lives in. I know the neighborhood, but I know she's not from there. I'm like, why'd you move here of all places? She said, I moved here because of the school system. I know they have better schools in this area than the neighborhood that I was living in before. So when we have school choice, you won't have to make those kind of life decisions. You won't have to move to a place to get a better school. You can live wherever you want to live and send your kid to the school you choose to send your kid to, or at least have some form of choice. Right now, there isn't too much choice. And a lot of organizations that claim to be for black people, Democrats, NAACP, they're against school choice. Why is this? What do they have to lose? And the reason that they're against it is because the teachers unions give money to these organizations, the Democratic Party, the NAACP, to push out anything that would take power away from the teachers union. And again, you can read about this on your own. Don't take my word for anything that I said. Verify everything that I say. Get the information on your own and have this information. Be armed with this information if you're going to follow my survival guide, as I said. Let me give you another example question. Why are black homicides, meaning when the black person is committing the homicide, why do black people commit homicide nearly equal in number? I'm talking about actual volume number, raw numbers, to white people committing homicide, even though whites outnumber blacks nearly 5-1 in the United States. How is that possible? Yes, this is factual data. You can find this at the FBI's website. They offer this data on the exact number of homicides that occurred in a year, in a calendar year. They will tell you how many homicides, what race committed the homicide, what race was the victim of the homicide. They do this with homicide, they do it with violent crime, they do it with sex cases, they do it with assault cases. You can go look these things up. All this information is freely available to you folks. This is factual information. Everything I'm giving you is factual here. So you can take my word for it, but you can also, I would suggest you verify as well. Why are black people and white people committing the same number of homicides when there's nearly 5 times as many white people as there are black? Now, somebody might already have an answer for that one. They might say, well, it's deep-rooted through slavery. It's deep-rooted through the poverty that has been imposed upon black people by systemic racism. Well, if they say that, refer yourself back to the first question that I gave you, which was, if racism is so bad now, why was the poverty rate and the single-parent rate lower in the 1940s and 1950s, before the civil rights movement, while there still were Jim Crow laws, why was it lower then than it is now? So obviously it's not about that. It's not about systemic racism, because those were systemic racist policies. Those are gone, and they were the ones that get mentioned the most. So how is it that black people are doing worse family-wise? Now, again, you got to be ready with these questions. And let me give you one more example question that you can use. These are just example questions. You don't have to use these ones. I'm just giving you some examples so you understand how you can word these. Why do black graduation rates in colleges go up? More black people graduate from colleges when race-based admission practices go down. In other words, when schools stop using affirmative action to choose their admittance, the students that they let in, more black people graduate. The percentage of black kids who graduate from college increases when affirmative action is not used. In other words, the kids who graduate from college, the number of kids, percentage of kids rather, who graduate from college who are black goes up when the only kids who get into college are those who actually earned their way into college, not those who are forced into college just because they're black over white or Asian or Latin kids who have actually outperformed them in school and in standardized tests. But because they're black, they get the admittance to a certain college that an Asian student who is 10 times better than them academically won't get just because the Asian student happened to be the wrong race. This stuff happens every day, folks. These are the kind of things you need to be informed about and you need to know about, especially once you start hearing these woke people talk, because they have a pretty solid monopoly on mass media. They are trying to get a monopoly over the schools and education. Those of you who are parents with young kids, this stuff is happening in your schools. I don't know how much you know about it or how much you care. This stuff is happening every day. You need to know these things that are going on so that you are at least armed with certain questions, so you know what questions to ask. I told you not too long ago, right here on this show, that asking the right question is more important than having the answer. Episode 1741. Asking the right question is the most important thing right now. Don't take Dre Baldwin's word for everything. All right? You need to have the questions to ask and let them answer them. And if you're not comfortable with the answers people are giving you, then you probably have a pretty good idea they're most likely bullshitting you. And a lot of times they are, because the stuff that when you hold these things up to the light and you're held up to scrutiny, there is no answer to them. So I gave you some fact-based questions that you can start asking. So now you have something. And let's get on to point number 5. Last one today. Today's topic is a social justice survival guide for non-woke, non-scared, non-racist, non-anti-racist white people. Number 5, do not bend your knee to the woke mob. What does that mean? Now, I talked about this a few episodes back. I told you the story of the band member who co-signed a certain book, and fans started attacking him, and his bandmates pressured him into taking some time away from the band because the band was scared of the mob attacking them and maybe hurting their sales and their opportunity to book gigs. And this pussy apologized on social media for co-signing a book that he liked. He apologized because he said he liked a book, and social media attacked him for it. Or the guy who was on Jeopardy held up 3 fingers because he won. They said it was a white power symbol, and he apologized if he offended anybody, when he should have said, "Oh, you shut the hell up. Y'all know I won 3 times. That's why I said it. You got a problem with it, kiss my ass, and I'm going to win again, and I'm going to hold up 4 fingers. Then what is it?" That's what he should have did. So this is what I'm telling you. Do not bend your knee to the woke mob. In other words, when woke people start coming at you and attacking you for being white, or telling you to condemn yourself for your whiteness and for your inherent racism or any other bullshit that is being thrown out there these days. And again, I'm not making this up. This stuff is really happening, and I've seen the documents, I've seen the screenshots, I've seen the slides from the presentations y'all been getting at y'all jobs, and people send them to me. All right. These things are really happening. When someone starts throwing these things at you, do not apologize. Do not bend your head. Do not bow your head. Do not bend the knee. Do not make yourself feel like you are lesser. Do not accept this bullshit. It won't make them like you. It will not make them respect you. It won't make you like yourself. What you need to do is stand up to the mob, not by being so necessarily combative or nasty, because they may get like that, but stand up to them with factual information and ask questions. Read these authors that I referred you to. Ask them to answer the questions. what was going to happen is they're going to go away and they're going to leave you alone. All right, facts don't need emotion to be true. When someone's throwing a ton of emotion behind the things that they're saying, it may be to cover up the fact that there are no real facts and no real substance behind what they're saying. Anecdotes and rhetoric need emotion because there is no substance to go with them. Now, just because someone's being anecdotal and they have emotion does not necessarily mean that they don't have facts. But when someone has anecdotes and emotion, it might mean that they don't have facts because that is masking the fact that there is no substance behind what they're saying. So this is just a skill in reading people, and not only reading people, but also knowing your information ahead of time so that when someone comes with some bullshit, you know it's some bullshit. You can't be blindsided by it and not be the one who doesn't know it. So let's recap the points here today. Social justice survival guide for non-scared, non-woke, non-racist, yet non-anti-racist white people. All right, this is for the non-woke white Americans and anyone else who doesn't subscribe to anti-racism, but you have a problem with a lot of the woke stuff that's being thrown out there, especially as it likes to condemn you just for being white, even though you personally have not done anything wrong to anybody. So I'm gonna help you out here today. Number one, getting something clear off top. Some people will say, "Oh, Dre, you're defending these white people." It's not about defending any type of person. It's about defending intelligence, whether it comes from you, whether it comes from a person who's the exact opposite color of you, opposite gender, whatever, wherever they're from. I defend intelligence and I point out ridiculousness and bullshit. I don't care who it comes from or who it criticizes. Point number two, first thing you must do, arm yourself with factual information, not so you can combat people because that's not going to work, but so that you can ask questions. All right, do not go rhetoric for rhetoric or emotion for emotion with these people because that's not going to work. They're better at it than you. They've been doing it for way longer. Two authors, I'm going to tell you to consume everything you can from these people, whether it is free on YouTube or it's a book you purchase and read. Thomas Sowell and Jason L. Riley. There are many others. I'm just pointing out those two because those are the two that I have consumed the most of on these certain topics. Point number three, remember that you are not in the business of changing minds. You are not going to engage with these people to try to change their minds. You're probably not going to do it. There are very few people who are capable of making someone else change their mind. There's actually nobody capable of doing that. And you don't want to put the time into trying anyway. It's a losing strategy. Victimhood draws attention, sympathy, and requires some form of reparation. Nobody's going to stop signing up for that once they have the job. Your job is to offer them the facts through questions, and you just share it and let them take it home with them. That's it. Some example questions I told you. If racism is getting worse, why is the poverty rate and the rate of single-parent homes higher now than it was during Jim Crow and pre-civil rights? Or why is the NAACP against charter schools when the majority of failing black students are actually coming from public schools? Why not allow school choice? Another, why are black homicides equal to white homicides, meaning the perpetrator of homicide, when whites outnumber blacks nearly 5-1? And if they answer that's because slavery and poverty was systemic, then bring it back to the first question. And the last one, why do black graduation rates percentages go up actually when race-based admission practices go down? These are all factually true questions. Number 5, do not bend your knee to the woke mob. It won't make them like you, won't make them respect you, it won't make you like yourself. Stand up to the mob with factual information and questions, consume that material that I told you, ask them to answer the questions. They will usually shrivel up and die and go away and leave you alone and never bother you again because they know that they can't combat your facts with their emotions and their anecdote. It does not work, it does not sell. Facts do not need emotion to be true. Rhetoric needs emotion to be true. Doesn't mean emotion means somebody is bullshitting, but if someone is throwing out a ton of emotion and it seems to not be much substance, it might be because they know as well as you do that there is no substance behind it. So next time you survive an attack from the woke mob, you can thank me. Send me a text and tell me about it. My number is 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre all day.